Rajasthan's 2025 state budget presented by the state finance minister 5.37 lakh crore recruitment for up to 4.75 lakh positions in the government and private sector, water supply projects, and construction of greenfield expressways were the highlights of the Rajasthan Budget 25-26 presented by the State Finance Minister Diya Kumari. Investment required to meet India's emission reduction goal $700 billion. Moody's rating stated that the power sector accounts for around 37% of carbon emissions in the country. The sector, which is highly dependent on coal-fired generation, has to make decarbonization investments for the country to meet its emission cut goals. Women Naxals killed in Madhya Pradesh police encounter. Three police Madhya Pradesh Police Combat Unit Hawk Force and the police neutralized three hardcore Naxalites in an encounter near Ronda Forest Camp in Sukhpar Forest Range under Garhi Police Station area. Additional rice to be given under the Anya Bhagya Scheme 5 in KG Karnataka. Government will provide an additional rice from February under pre-poll Anya Bhagya guarantee. US President Donald Trump to increase auto tariffs 25%. On building resilient telecom structure, why does the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure report state? Why do telecom networks face elevated risk in coastal regions in times of disaster and calamity, and why are undersea cables preferred over overland cables? Is power failure a significant challenge? The CDRI, a multilateral organization launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2019, put out a report earlier this month studying Indian telecom networks preparedness in the event of disasters. The report suggests ways in which state governments can better prepare for calamities that may impact telecom networks. Telecom networks are crucial to handling disasters because they allow the state and NDMA to communicate quickly, and local municipalities and the state and union governments, something that is important. When lives and properties are at stake, telecom networks are particularly vulnerable as they comprise cabling that may not be fully underground, towers that may not be able to withstand high wind speeds, and because they rely on a steady flow of electricity, which is frequently disrupted by disasters like cyclones and earthquakes. On top of towers being hit by high-speed winds, overland cables, as opposed to underground ones, which can be protected from many disasters, can snap. Coastal regions face elevated risk. That is where undersea cables connect India with the global internet. If landing stations of these cables are impacted, there can be massive network disruptions as telecom operators try to reroute traffic through other cables. The lack of power during disasters remains a major issue. When I first joined here, I did my own analysis of data of telecom outages since 2016 and found that the real issue was power. Sanjay Agrawal, Deputy Director General of the Disaster Management and Department of Telecommunications, said. Severed undersea cables have time-consuming repair process that involves a repair vessel arriving near the coastal and rejoining the cables. However, since much of the disruption is attributable to power failures, much can be accomplished during a disaster by maintaining or restoring power supply to telecom towers and the network operating centers to which they are connected. Telecom operators have typically never deployed towers assuming 24/7 power supply, with possible exception of Mumbai, and have battery as well as fuel backup. Pradeep Kumar Jaina, former Chief Secretary of Odisha, said, "Sometimes a tower operator may not have enough power available at a time of disaster for whatever reason. One cannot blame at that point of time. And when this happens, we decide, let's give every telecom operator 50 liters of fuel." Sometimes a tower operator may not have enough power available at a time of disaster for whatever reason. One cannot blame at that point of time. And when this happens, we decide, let's give every telecom operator 50 liters of fuel. Even if the fuel is wasted, the 50 lakhs spent on it goes a long way in keeping networks online. He said this is complemented with the information from DOT. We get data from all telecom operators on damages for assets for every disaster. We have software to monitor in real time what telecom assets are down. as such resources can be deployed quickly to bring sites back online. CDRI report recommends a few measures to develop resilient telecom network. These include greater data collection and more coordination among officials, a more robust power infrastructure. Resilient power infrastructure is also an area where CDRI focused an enormous amount of effort on and requiring cell towers to withstand higher wind speed, especially in coastal areas and districts where hurricanes make landfall. CDRI also advocates for a dig once policy, which recommends building as much underground civil infrastructure like water and gas supply lines, drainage, and fiber optic cables simultaneously, reducing the risk of cables being damaged when other infrastructure is built. Existing damage to underground cables can greatly exacerbate disruptions when other parts of the network go down. The short to medium term roadmap suggests the need to update disaster damage and loss data format, mainstream disaster risk modeling into telecommunication infrastructure, planning across miles, and strengthen telecommunication asset design based on local hazard, regional hazard vulnerability profiles, and other steps to plan ahead, the report says. There are also commercial interventions that the report touches on. A key one is the parametric insurance, a system where telecom operators are not left to bear the commercial burden of the disaster all by themselves and are thus financially incentivized to bring networks back online rapidly and presumably to nudge themselves to disaster proof their infrastructure well enough to keep premiums down. Telecom resilience comes down to a mix of both massive interventions as well as small investments that can have an outsized benefit. For instance, during heavy rains, diesel generators can stop working even at a knee level flooding. Once one way simple intervention that can go a long way in keeping towers online is by installing the generator a little higher up in the tower so that the backup power can kick in during flooding. These include greater data collection and more coordination among officials, more robust power infrastructure, and requiring cell towers to withstand high wind speeds. The CDRI also advocates for a dig once policy, which recommends building as much underground civil infrastructure like water and gas supply lines, drainage, fiber optic cables simultaneously, reducing the risk of cables being damaged. The short to medium term roadmap suggests need to update disaster damage and loss data format, mainstream disaster risk modeling into telecommunications infrastructure, planning across all miles, and strengthening telecommunication asset design based on local and regional hazard vulnerability. Telecom networks are crucial to handling disasters because they allow the state and national disaster management authorities to communicate quickly with local municipal and state and union governments. The CDRI report recommends few measures to develop resilient telecom network. These include greater data collection and more coordination among officials, a more robust power infrastructure requiring cell towers to withstand high wind speeds, especially in coastal states and districts where hurricanes make a landfall. Coastal regions face elevated risk as that is where undersea cables connect India with the global internet. Did the Iron Age on Indian soil start from Tamil Nadu? Why did the Chief Minister Stalin assert that history of Indian subcontinent could no longer overlook Tamil Nadu? What did the recent report Antiquity of Iron Recent Radiometric Dates from Tamil Nadu state? Releasing a report on Antiquity of Iron, Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister said that iron state began on Tamil soil, placing the date 5300 odd years ago, 4th millennium BCE, and that history of Indian subcontinent could no longer overlook Tamil Nadu. The usage of iron is one of the most important technological innovations in human history. Genesis of iron in India has seen several explanations, including its supposed arrival with immigrants. from the West. Experts and scholars from around the middle of the last century traced its origin back to 700 to 600 BCE. However, subsequent radiocarbon dating and research pushed it further back. Technical studies and materials found at several places suggest that iron smelting in India could have begun as early as 16th century BCE. Furthermore, in the backdrop of the results of the excavations at the Uttar Pradesh 2 decades ago, former Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, Rakesh Tiwari, had highlighted in this paper the origins of iron working in India, new evidence from the central Ganga plain and the eastern Vindhyas that by the early 13th century BCE, iron smelting was definitely known in India on a bigger scale. Iron artifacts, furnaces, and tuyeres, carbon dated between 1800 and 10,000 BCE, were found during the excavations conducted by the UP State Archaeological Department at Raja Nala Katila, Malhar, and Dadupur. Further, in the backdrop of results of excavations at Uttar Pradesh 2 decades ago, former DG of ASI had highlighted the paper origins of iron working in India, new evidence from the central Ganga plain in eastern that early 13th century BCE iron smelting was definitely known in India on a bigger scale. However, its subsequent radiocarbon dating and research pushed it further back. Technical experts and scholars around the middle to last century traced its origin to back 600 to 700 BCE. In Malhar, especially the presence of tuyeres, slags, and finished iron artifacts hinted at a large-scale manufacturing of iron tools. Collating all the evidence, it was said that iron smelting and manufacturing of iron artifacts were well known in the eastern Vindhyas, and iron may have been in use in the central Ganga plain at least from the early 2nd millennium BCE. As for Tamil Nadu, several excavations have been underway. In 2022, before the recent report released by Mr. Stalin pushed back the antiquity of iron in Krishnagiri district, came under the limelight after the chief minister placed the introduction of the Iron Age at 4200 years ago, 3rd millennia BCE in the state. He cited the findings of the state archaeological department's report titled Mailaduparai, beginning of agrarian society, 4200 years old Iron Age culture in Tamil Nadu, resulting in experts pointing out that this place the Iron Age in the state in the same timeline as Copper or Bronze Age in the other parts. The recently released report by the State Archaeology Department, Antiquity of Iron, recent radiometric dates from the Tamil Nadu attest to this and has pointed out when cultural zones to the north of Vindhyas experienced the Copper Age, those in the south might have entered into the Iron Age already. Owing to the limited availability of commercially exploitable copper ore, target-oriented excavations were initiated by the State Archaeology Department, Archaeological Survey of India, and others in recent years across places such as Shivaglai, Adichanallur, and Kilanmandi and Mailadumparai in the state to arrive at a panoramic view of the nature of Tamil Nadu's Iron Age. Based on the findings, we have placed at a date of at 3345 BCE to 2953 BCE. On taking the mean age of this, we can arrive at a conclusion that Iron Age of Tamil soil started in the first quarter of the 4th millennium BCE. An archaeology scholar told the Hindu, while reiterating that this, however, need not pave the way for assertions that the Iron Age originated from the Tamil soil itself. With this, the door of further research into Tamil history and culture have opened up. Releasing a report on the antiquity of iron, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin proclaimed that the Iron Age began on Tamil soil. Recently released report by the State Archaeology Department, Antiquity of Iron, metric dates from the Tamil Nadu has pointed out that when cultural zones to the north of the Vindhyas experienced the Copper Age, those in the south might have entered the Iron Age already. Target-oriented excavations were initiated in the State Archaeology Department across places such as Shivabilai, Adichanallur, Kilmandi, and Maidalam-Parai to arrive at a panoramic view of the nature of Tamil Nadu's Iron Age. Theory and practice, the ethical core in the Amir Sen Weltanschauung. Weltanschauung. Years ago, I asked the legendary teacher of economics, Professor Bhabatosh Datta, Sir, what according to you is the focal point in the economic thinking of your legendary student Amartya Sen, who is not only revered as a superb social scientist but also a profound philosopher? After pausing for a second, Professor Datta replied, economics to Amartya Sen is like it was to Alfred Marshall, a handmaiden of ethics and a servant of practice. When I reported this evaluation to Nobel laureate student, he replied, almost overwhelmed with emotion, how can I ever repay my debt to that great teacher? Bhabatosh Babu was unerring in his estimate. From his adolescence, Sen was wedded to practice. While he was student of Patha Bhavan in Shantiniketan, he used to ride his bicycle and spend hours in contiguous villages inhabited by Adivasis. He examined assiduously their quotidian lives, their struggle and deprivation. He handed over the bicycle to the Swedish Academy, and it is now displayed in the Nobel Museum. Studying the worth of a simple vehicle, Sen wrote in his memoir, Home in the World, this bicycle has been with me since my school days. I had used the bike not only to collect data on wages and prices from inaccessible places such as old farm sheds and warehouses when studying the Bengal famine in 1943, but also to transport the machine to way boys and girls up to the ages of 5 to the neighboring villages from Shantiniketan to examine gender discrimination and gradual emergence of relative deprivation of girls. That was his praxis when he was only a schoolgoer. It is then surprising that this committed teenager would explore later as a researcher the intrinsic relationship between ethics and moral philosophy and economics. His entire worldview is nourished by the bond between the two. Hence, my first question to him on a cold wintry night at Pratrichi, the name of house in Shantiniketan, was: experts and laymen agree that you have gone beyond the accepted boundaries of your discipline, namely economics, and have penetrated into the realm of philosophy or ethics. Do you think this journey has led to an epistemological break? His answer was crystal clear. We need to recall that the subject of modern economics began in a very ambitious way with Adam Smith seeing economics as a part of moral and practical philosophy. That seems to be the right perspective economics in which to see economics today. Indeed, many of the economic problems dealing with human welfare today, which after all is a basic motivation for all economics, have philosophical dimensions that cannot be avoided. So I wouldn't consider it to be a rather radical epistemological break, but an urgent return to the very foundations. The inexplorable progress from this ethical stratum to the formulation of his leitmotif, namely the theory of social or moral choice, was spontaneous. Deliberating on this crucial cognition, uh, cogi- cogitation, which fetched him the Nobel Prize in 98, he stressed first this subject enjoys 200 years old tradition going back to the writings of Bentham, Bourdieu, and Condorcet. Second, in recent year, it has been immensely recent. immensely developed by Kenneth Arrow, who gave it a systematic mathematical format and posed some crucial problems which led to impossible results. Third, I tried to deal with some of these possible impossibilities and I proposed some solutions. Fourth, I found out that the format of social choice crossed the very narrow limits posed by utilitarianism and voting theories. Fifth, I must say that it played a major part in my understanding of the world. His sharp critique of utilitarianism led to next query: if not John Stuart Mill, which economist or philosopher would you revere as the most eloquent exponent of your fundamental quest, our journey from the realm of necessity to the realm of freedom? His answer came like a cascade. I affirm that Marx has discussed the issue most illuminatingly than any other economist. He was, of course, much more than economist. In fact, in the Marxian valuation system, freedom in a positive sense has a clear role which does not quite have in any of the other standard moral philosophical system. I greatly value the redemptive and ethical vision of Marx. It is this indispensable principle of ethics and related practice that inspired Sen to discover appropriate correlatives in other disciplines. He told me more than once that he attached an inestimable worth to Immanuel Kant because his philosophy was embedded in ethical or moral, that is, Kant's expression, engagement. His advice was read Kant's moral law and his critique of pure reason minutely. No other Western philosopher before him cemented ethics with reason in the way he has. Similarly, he cherishes a pronounced love for the unforgettable Sanskrit play Mudra Raksha by Shudraka because here the protagonist Charudatta and his consort, the dazzling Vasantasena, advocate of supremacy of Nyaya or ethical justice while evaluating human conduct. In his word, I interpreted Charudatta's priority to be the pursuit of Nyaya, seeking a good world in which we can live with fairness rather than obey the nitis of fruit fixed rules. No doubt, this emphasis on ethics impels him to hit the nail on the head in our age of infinite conundrum and incessant conflict, almost in the manner of infallible Euclid. He concludes all perceptible problems of the world originate from one form of inequality or another. Saying here is not indulging in any reductionism. Rather, he is posting the ineradicable essence of all endeavors and aspiration. His devotion to moral praxis helps us scissor our countless cobwebs, and we recall the consummate tribute paid by the Nadine Gordimer. Sen is one of the few great world intellectuals on whom we may rely to make sense of our existential confusion. Shivaji belonged to Bhosle clan. This battle took place in November 1659 in Satara between Maratha forces of Shivaji and Bijapur troops. Battle of Pratapgarh. This treaty was signed between Shivaji and Jai Singh in 1665. After the battle fought between Mughal and Marathas, Treaty of Purandar. In the mid-19th century, Maratha social reformer Jyotirao Phule, Shivaji used his Wagnak and Rajkot fort. Mathematician who served as first election commissioner. Apart from being the first and only women to serve CEC, what other distinction does V.S. Ramadevi tenure hold? Nota option was introduced under whose tenure, and who has served CEC for the longest tenure? Sangam drinking water is fit for drinking UPCM. NGT pulls UPPCB over report without adequate information. NGT pulled up the UP Pollution Control Board for not submitting adequate information to the court, including fecal coliform levels in river water in Prayagraj. As per the CPCB report, the levels of fecal coliform were high in the river water during Mahakumbh on Wednesday when the NGT bench asked, Whether the UP government was challenging the findings of CPCB, Additional Advocate General Garima Prasad, representing Uttar Pradesh government, said they were not challenging the report but were just asking for the sampling points of the CPCB. The NGT noted that the UPPCB's report submitted to the court was about water samples collected till January 12, before the beginning of Mahakumbh. On Thursday, it pulled up the PCB asking what sort of report they have filled with no information on fecal coliform. India has a lot of money, why give it $21 million? Asked Trump. US President has wondered why $21 million was given to India for voter turnout, reiterating that US can hardly get in there because of high Indian tariffs. India is one of the highest taxing countries in the world, he said while signing executive orders at the Mar-Lago on Tuesday. Four women Maoists killed in encounter with police in Madhya Pradesh Balaghat. An extensive search operation by 12 teams of Hawk Force, CRPF Cobra, Commando Battalion for Resolute Action, and local police. Top Court takes note of Lokpal order on High Court judge. Special bench on Supreme Court is scheduled to hear on Thursday suo motu case concerning an order of an anti-corruption ombudsman Lokpal that asserts jurisdiction over High Court judges. Odisha government promises action over Nepali student death. Legal system should evolve to respect adolescent love. High Court. Justice Arvind Kumar delivers seventh Satpal Mittal Memorial Lecture. Infosys denies using intimidation tactics at Mysuru campus. Salaries grow at a slower pace in 2025, show study. Trump tells dictator Zelensky to move fast for peace or lose Ukraine. Afghan refugees to face arrest evictions in twin cities of Pak. Only second animal to find its way by polarized moonlight found. The way polarization patterns of sunlight and moonlight are oriented allows animals to use it as compass. Nocturnal bull ants were able to detect polarized moonlight. NASA's James Webb Telescope is providing best look at chaotic events unfolding in the supermassive black hole at the Milky Way galaxy. Rekha Gupta, Delhi CM, no one can argue with me. Trump on reciprocal tariffs. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.